right, here we go. Overdrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. What a beautiful Friday here in Toronto, leading into a big weekend. A big, big weekend for eating and for seeing family and friends and being thankful, and that's where we're at on a Friday afternoon.
Got to tell you guys, a little bit embarrassed. I totally forgot about Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah?
I thought it was maybe like the weekend after. I have like zero turkey plans. There's this.
So what does that mean then? Like no one's reaching out to you to include you in the plans, or are you supposed to be hosting and you didn't realize?
No way I'm hosting. The only thing I might have going for me is
I would love to see you.
I know how this transaction would go down. He would have an unbelievable grade A spread. Like, O-Dog does it up right. Like, I promise you that. I can back you that. 100%, correct?
I'm not gonna take any shortcuts. But as far as like,
once I get,
but hold on,
that's what you're saying.
And then the minute that we were done, it's a little bit of chit chat, and then it's like, okay, everybody can leave. Like you would want a transaction and people out. You don't want people loitering in your house. That's how I would feel.
What I do is I get someone on my team right away. On my wife's side, cousin Jen, married to my wife's cousin. I call her in the morning and I go, you make sure after the last piece of dessert is consumed, get your husband and get in the car and go and set the stage. She's like, don't worry. That's right after that. I don't like the lingering. You know the one, like it's a pot of one half a coffee turns into a pot of coffee, turns into extra dessert, which turns into leftovers. Can I have another turkey sandwich? And it's like, that is outrageous, man.
I know it, man. I know it. And listen, the explanation generally is we like spending time together.
You don't.
No, but that's what it is. That's what families are doing. Believe me, I grew up in a family. It was a 2-hour tops transaction. Roll in. How's everyone doing? Great to see everyone. See you later. That's how I was raised. Dude, and it was amazing. We all love each other. Everyone cares for each other. I married into a family that is the opposite of that. It is a stick around. Everyone's happy to see each other. And it's great. And
but what does that entail? Like, let's say it's a 4 o'clock feed. What are we looking at? Give me a timetable.
That's a 1 o'clock pull-up. That's a 1 o'clock pull-up, 7:30 leave.
Oh.
Yeah. And again, very festive. Very festive, very family-oriented. But your little routine, Cousin Jen, would not be flying. Doesn't fly, doesn't happen that way.
Why? What if you guys just randomly got up and said, because my signature move is I take after my dad. My dad would put his fork down and look at my mom and go, let's go.
I love that play.
Dude, it is
I respect it.
And as soon as you get used to it, it's just the norm, and I'm the same way. As soon as I eat my last morsel of food, I just, for some reason, I cannot stick around, and I have to get in my car. But I'm always early. Like the 4 o'clock feed, I'm there at 2:15, and then it's literally eat and I'm gone. It's a 3-hour transaction, all taxes in.
Right.
But that's all that's needed. 7:30, man. Come on.
Again, very family-oriented.
Yeah, but you're talking like kids' games and maybe
everyone's
activities.
having fun. Exactly. Kids, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I'm going back-to-back this weekend, and I can tell you on my side, my parents' side, it will be.
Just before you start that, I'd like to let you know of a little something. You can always place a call that says, we're doing this side this year. Can't make it. You don't have to double down.
Oh, that's not happening. It's a double down. It's a double down. It's the way it goes, and we're excited, and everyone's very excited. Don't get me wrong. I do not want to give off some sort of negative vibe here. That is not what I'm trying to supply. I'm just saying it will be a very different transaction, and everyone's going to have a great weekend, and that's all that matters. And I think if you're a Leaf fan, right, lots to be thankful for. If you're a member of Hayes and Bro, lots to be thankful for. If you're a New York sports fan, the Yankees are through, the Mets are through. What a week it's going to be in New York.
Ooh.
And tomorrow night, if you're lucky enough to have tickets, you're going to see the home opener with Sidney Crosby in town, and the Leafs are 1-1, and all of a sudden the mojo's back. And I liked the way they played last night for the most part. I like the way they played through 2 games. Like, I like who's stepping up. It's not the Matthews and Marner and Nylander show. Yeah. It's not goalie's got to stand on his head to survive. It's just a very workman-like, everyone plug in, pick up a couple points.
What a great idea.
Now, looking at watching them, the only thing, and you never complain about anything when you win and all that, I still think they need a little bit more discipline in their game as far as, like, you don't need to go out of your way to show Craig Berube you're tough. Just have it organically happen. Like, I still feel like there's a little extra. It's like, hey, I got to show the coach. But because some of the guys on that roster just have it. Like McCabe has it, like Lorenz has it. Those guys are, like, got some bite. But they don't need to, like, go extra. I think it's just like, you want a punch in the face, I'll hand it to you, or I'll give it a little extra cross-check. You want to play that. But I still think it's that audition. I don't know how you guys feel. But
and also maybe they're trying to make up for the -0 amount of that in the last 6 years.
Fair enough. You don't have to go overboard, but it's just like the way that team is constructed, certain guys, I think it just comes organically. You know what I mean? There's guys that don't have that in their game that are trying to do it a little bit where you're like, you don't need to. Just play hard. Like, in that team, it played more straight line, played hard. Like, I liked their game last night.
Yeah. I'm curious who you're talking about or who you're referencing that was, like, going over the top.
Not over. It's just it's like you don't. There's no, like, one play. I don't know if there's a particular play I'd pull. It's just like you don't need to, like, show Berube that you're tough. Just play tough, if that makes sense. Maybe
yeah,
it's
I understand that. I think again they're built like, Reeves is out of the lineup last night. That Jersey team doesn't have a ton of bite. Like they're not really a team that you circle and say we could be in for one tonight.
Yeah.
And again, I thought the Leafs did a good job of showing up and kind of putting the hammer down early. And then naturally, Jersey pushed and they got back into it, had a big kind of second half of that second period. And in the third period, you couldn't ask for much better out of a veteran team with a lead on the road. They just kind of smothered them and shut them down and didn't give up many opportunities. And I hear what you're saying. And I think that, like, the Berube scenario, he has the presence that he has.
Right.
And there are guys fighting for ice time and positions. I think Bobby McMahon got the message. He got the message. I think Max Pacioretty, through 2 games, has looked pretty good. Like, he's a pretty physical guy. Like, he's capable of getting in there and being physical. Maybe that's what you're talking about, Noodles. Like, I can't imagine Pacioretty concerns themselves too much with that.
I don't think I think it's just more like this. Like, you don't, like, the attitude is like I think it'll rub off through osmosis. You don't need to show Berube you have to do it every shift. It'll just come. Like, the way that team is structured, they're going to be like that.
That said, I'd like to see it out of the star players. Like, that's one I would like to see. Like, and we've talked about this for 8 years, and I'm not holding my breath, and I don't think it's going to happen. But if there are 5 guys, or 4, that I would like to see, screw it, I want to play Berube hockey and do something and punch someone in the face, I'd like to see it be those guys.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
That's one I'd like to see.
I like to. I don't know. Matthews went hard to the net.
I liked this game
the
last
other night. Yeah, like he went hard to the. Was that last night or 2 nights?
Last
the Montreal
night, he
game
bowled over the defenseman and the goalie.
That was a good. Like, that's a hard play to the net. A big guy. Like, I like that. There's no fighting though. But it's like, hey, I'm a big body. I can get there. Like, that's the type of stuff I think. If it rubs off organically, that's a real nice play because you get that from a top player. That's I'm going to get to that spot. And impose my will. I think
what Hayes is talking about, though, is even in preseason, some rookie laid out Hedman, and the first guy to grab the kid was Kucherov.
Yeah.
Like, just that type of stuff. But let's not get into negatives.
That's no
negative. That's not going to happen. But I like their workman-like game.
I think through 2 games they should have 4 points. And Montembeault was great opening night. Credit to him.
Yeah, he was.
But, I like where the Leafs are at. I do. I think and I like Hildeby's game last night. Like, he looked like he did in the preseason, a big guy that, doesn't look like he's a fish out of water. It's 1 game. He's young. He's raw. I don't think he's ready for 40 starts in the NHL. And it's certainly not ideal, but I give him full credit considering what Sheldon Keefe did to him last year. Yeah, Keefe had the opportunity to play him multiple times last year and said, not happening, not doing it. And there's Hildeby in Keefe's buildings, and this is what I could have granted you last year. Maybe he wasn't ready to do that.
Yeah,
Maybe he
might
wasn't.
not have been.
I'm
He
so
sure
glad
looked good
that
last
kid
night.
went in there and played well, because it's an opportunity. And now and I've got nothing against Joseph Wall. I'm just the grizzled old guy in the locker room where it's like, okay, you're injured. You just got to step aside, and we got to move forward here and get guys to get the job done. Because if he went in there and it was a gas can and it was ugly, everyone's like, okay, it's Matt Murray time. We're in trouble.
Right.
And that would bug me so much. I'm just so happy for the kid. And now it's like nothing to worry about. Continue to move forward. Stolars will play tomorrow night, and it's just they're comfortable with everything.
Yep.
I think the coaches probably needed to put eyes on Hildeby to do that, and who knows what he's going to do moving forward. But now they're like, in a back-to-back situation, if you're up here, you're going to play.
Well, and they like him. There's a reason why. There's a pathway for him here. You know, they didn't sign Stolars to a 4-year deal or anything. Like Hildeby, they're developing him at the AHL level. And I think they're happy that he's getting games. Now, you don't want Joseph Wall to get lost in the shuffle here, but it will be interesting to see, because it's all about trust. Craig Berube right now is at a 2-pack of goaltending. Both goaltenders have played well in their first 2 starts. I thought Stolars played very well the other night, and I thought Hildeby played very well last night. Mm-hmm. That's a good problem to have.
Absolutely.
You know? And it's something that you've wanted, is stability there. And it's got to be that next man up mentality. If Joseph Wall's not available, fine. We've got Hildeby, we've got Stolars, and you keep going on and keep pressing for competition there.
That's what I think the story of the first 2 games and of camp is, that they like their depth. They feel they have depth. And even the Timothy Liljegren situation is an example of that. And
Right.
Darren Dreger was tweeting out earlier this afternoon that, maybe he gets traded at some point, but it doesn't seem like it's a priority for Brad Treliving and company, because you've got depth. And if you have 3 goalies that you feel you can play, maybe 4 if Murray's healthy, and Murray's an NHL goalie. He's got 2 cup rings. I mean, If he's healthy, he's not going to be overcome by the stage if you have to play him. I don't know how he'll perform, but he will not be shook by any situation he runs into. So you have some depth there. You clearly like your depth on defense. If Liljegren's not even playing, and he's a capable defenseman, we know that. I mean, how far up the lineup he can play is up for debate. Would he want out? I wouldn't be shocked. I don't know that definitively, but I wouldn't be shocked if he wanted an opportunity to play every single night. But there's depth. And then last night, Reeves comes out. You've got Dewar, who's still banged up. Yarncroke still hasn't played. Like, they get a lot of options, and through 2 games, again, the big boys offensively have not broken loose. And you're not going to get goals from the 4th line every night, or even the 3rd line. That's not going to happen. Like, at some point, the pendulum is going to swing, and it's going to be Matthews and Marner and Nylander, and that's naturally going to be the guys who drag them wherever they're going to go offensively. But the 3 of them, they didn't have a point in 2 games. Like, you get Matthews, Marner, and Nylander in a situation where they're not scoring through 2 games, and you felt like you played pretty well overall. I think Craig Berube would sign off on that.
I'll tell you what, that William Nylander almost got his first dress. He probably still did get a little bit of a dressing down. If he had got called for that shooting the puck late in the game there, after that holding call, and he went to the box for 4 minutes at that time of the game, and that somehow affected the outcome of the game, he would have had some serious heat on him, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Serious.
Yeah, and that's like Gordon, Mike, and MJ were talking about that. Like, that could be an extra 2. Maybe a 10.
You go and shoot the
It
puck
was
like
close.
that after you get a penalty called against you. You're asking for it.
I think he got the William Nylander break. If that was somebody, because he is a very substantial player, I think he got a break there.
From the ref, you mean?
Yes,
Or
that's
if
what I mean.
Bobby McMahon, they're like, that's an extra 2.
Maybe if it's somebody else that's not as high profile, maybe, you know what I mean? Like, which is, you'll take a favorable break, but if,
Absolutely,
you know what? If you don't, you're right. Like, this is the one thing that we are talking about 2 games in. This is the Craig Berube effect, because if that had happened in the last couple of years, would you say a dressing down would be coming? And that's not. I think Sheldon was a firm coach, but I think it's just the way that Berube, new coach, still trying to develop that relationship. You do something like that early, and it comes back on you, he might not be shy to give you heck. Where you get
he might be getting it anyway, Noodles. I don't think William Nylander has been particularly good through 2 games, and then he's been stupid with the penalty, and it's been a little ho-hum. So he might have been getting it anyway.
Well,
and he's just that kind of player where he can kind of doze off and go to different places where you got to snap him in line. And that's just what you're going to get. That's the way he is. But the good outweighs the bad, and that's what you just put up with.
Yeah. And
right?
like, he didn't play a ton last night. Willie played 15-35, and like Austin and Marner played a lot. And that's not surprising. Power play. They're killing penalties. So Matthews is like, that was something that was talked about last year. And again, I think what's become clear here is where Trey Living comes into play, because last year Trey Living, I think, wanted Austin to kill penalties. Keefe just wouldn't do it. Remember, they talked about it during the preseason last year. Same thing with Nylander up the middle of the ice. They wanted to do it. I think Trey Living was pushing it, and Keefe pushed back. Berube's pushed back on the idea of Nylander up the middle of the ice, but he's buying into the idea of playing Matthews, on the PK, and he played 3 minutes of shorthanded hockey last night. Like that's going to change the way you operate and the way you play. And it's also going to take out opportunities that Keefe put an emphasis on, getting him out the shift after a kill, where if you're out there killing a penalty, you're going to the bench. But I think, again, it's 2 games. These guys are still the best players. They're going to put up the best numbers. They're going to have to be the guys who drag them there. But the core 4 topic has been so prevalent for so long. And Tree Living, when he arrived 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, tried to get off that. We don't want to be core 4. We don't want to be core 4. And it just naturally was constantly there, and especially the way that Keefe utilized them. I'm curious if Berube is the guy that feels like he can break it. And it doesn't mean that the core 4 isn't the most important players. It's that he's going to use them differently. And it's not just going to be about cookies, and it's not just going to be about, taking advantage of the opposition in certain ways, which is still smart coaching and a good game plan, and I'm sure he'll try to do. But if he feels like Austin Matthews helps them win by killing penalties, then you're going to kill penalties. And that's the way it should be. Like, it should be about winning. Who cares if Austin hasn't scored yet? Who cares if Mitch hasn't scored? That's going to happen. They're going to get theirs. But if the priority is we will do whatever we have to win, and I credit the players for buying into that, that's what's going to change something here in the long run.
That's what I said, Hayes, when I said I would take 48 to 55 goals if the whole package looks completely different.
Right.
Let's be honest. It's been all about those 4 players for a long time.
Years.
It's just,
years.
Yes.
It's all about them. It's like a different vibe, and I don't know what goes on in there, but it's like their world and then everyone else's world. It's like now it's just focus on a team, and you're a part of it, and you got to do certain things. I love it. And how many games in the years past was it like big boys score or no win? You know what I mean? That's basically all it was. You were waiting for a Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Nylander goal, or it was like, who else is going to score a goal?
That's right.
Yeah.
And them chasing milestones, which, to be fair to the players, they're just out there playing and doing what they do best.
That's correct.
Right.
But it always was overshadowing, and it always was something that was so isolated. I think Edmonton's an example of that. Like, McDavid's just naturally going to get 135 points. Like, he's just that good. It's just naturally going to happen. Matthews is naturally going to score 1 million goals. But we talked about that the other day, and actions speak louder than words, where with Edmonton, it's like all we care about is winning. Who cares? Like, McDavid would go 0 points on the season if you give him a cup, and Draisaitl would do the same thing. And, the Leafs, if they get to that position mentally and, buy in, then that's ultimately what Leaf fans want. That's what matters. And that's where you get back into the contract chat and how people feel about these players. It's always because the team element of it doesn't pull its weight. The individuals do an amazing job. Superstar players, all-stars, awesome. All these goals, all these points, all these highlights. But when it falls short in terms of team success, you're never going to get 100% commitment from the fans and 100% love and loyalty. Where if you pair the two together, you will. And if you win, it's even more important than anything you'll ever do individually. And hopefully everyone's kind of figuring that out, and Craig Berube is the one that's going to push the right buttons to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, it's a good start for them. I think they have to continue to build on that and just, look good. Like, you played Jersey. I think Jersey's a playoff team.
Yep.
Montreal, I don't think they're a playoff team, but they played hard the other night. You got Pittsburgh coming off a win. Like I don't know how they're going to be feeling, but it's your home opener, so you got to play with lots of emotion. Like, you haven't played a lot of the big boys yet, but you need to continue to build your game. And
Absolutely.
when they play Tampa and the Rangers and all that coming up in the next, that's, Matthews and Marner and all those guys will be there because that's what they're going to be needed. To me, it's a natural build-up. You want to build consistency within your game. And the one thing I have noticed in, the 120 minutes they played, they look pretty consistent. Like, win or loss, they kind of played the same way, generated some chances, worked hard, played straight line hockey. I think that's what you can ask from the group. And then you'll get production from different people on different nights.
Yep. So we look ahead to the home opener tomorrow night. We'll tee that up throughout the afternoon. Mike Johnson coming up. Struddy will join us later in the hour, right? We let him breathe after the Oilers home opener a couple of nights ago. Get his take on what's going on out there. A bunch of games in the NHL, including the Sens with a big win over the Panthers last night. That's a big one for them to start that. Especially, it wasn't 6-5 overtime, right? 3-1.
Yeah.
Ullmark looks good. Stützle puts it home to kind of close it. That was big. Noodles, you were there last night. We'll get into that with you and with Struddy. And Luke Wilson coming up on a bunch of ball games this weekend. We'll look back on a big win and a great cover from the Niners last night.
I wasn't a part of it. What was the call? Like, whose call was it? Yours?
It was Hayes and Bro, and we took the Niners, and we laid the 3.5. And listen, it got dicey there when that kick return was brought to the house by the Seahawks last night. And then I think it was the Niners went 3 and out, and then all of a sudden, boom, Geno Smith puts them back in the end zone, and it's a 6-point game. I thought they were going to blow it. But the Niners got it back on the rails, and they needed that win. That was a big win, big cover. And Hayes and Bro are on fire. There's no other way to put it. So we'll catch up with Al's brother, Luke Wilson, later this afternoon. More into the Leaf game tomorrow night. Also a lot going on in baseball. There's so much going on in the sports world. Great afternoon setup. Dear Hazy B in a couple of hours as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. My buddy Jason Strudwick coming up here in a moment. I wonder if Struddy is offering up a place to stay for Raphael Lavoie, because if you're not familiar with his past 4 or 5 days.
He's now with Vegas, though, isn't he?
Well, okay, so Lavoie was placed on waivers by the Oilers on October 6th, claimed on October 7th by Vegas, put on waivers by Vegas on the 8th, claimed by Edmonton on the 9th, put back on waivers by Edmonton on the 10th, claimed by Vegas on the 11th. Like, this guy is just going from Edmonton to Vegas, Edmonton to Vegas.
But Vegas
how many times has he physically moved?
Well, obviously he's not. He must be. Is he in Denver, just somewhere in between the two cities, saying, let me know where I'm going to play?
He might have to be. But I think in this last transaction, Vegas wins because nobody else put in a claim, so they can actually get him to the minors.
Okay.
I think Vegas wins. I thought I was reading that just before the show, is Vegas will win that. He'll go to Henderson and play for them.
How does a guy like that get so much attention that's like that nobody wants to put in their lineup?
I think he's a good young player that still needs a bit of seasoning, and they're trying to get him to the minors. And, both teams are cap pressed up, right? But I think he's a player that will play in the NHL. Vegas wants him. Edmonton didn't want to lose him. They were trying to sneak him through, and there were multiple claims on him. And then Edmonton got him back, but they were able to get him because of the claims.
But now, that's the thing. Like, Vegas doesn't really want him. They want him in the minors. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we're claiming him, and then tomorrow we're putting him back on waivers. You claimed him again. All right.
Yeah.
Like, you would think at some point Jerry might pick up the phone and say, listen,
cut that crap
what
out.
You guys
someone stop. Almost like ask the player, where do you want to play? Because these two idiots are just going to go back and forth.
Well, I mean, what organization, and one should give a compensation. Be like, I'll give you a 5th rounder, just let him go through and get
right,
him to the
exactly.
minors.
I don't know if that's allowed or not, but that's exactly it.
Well, trade for him type of thing.
What would be great is if another team out of nowhere said, we'll take him.
Well, San Jose should take him.
Exactly.
Somebody like that.
Didn't that other guy, Desharnais, play one game for the Canucks, and he's like a healthy scratch coming up?
Yep.
Vinny Desharnais?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like anyway.
Well, he's a 6'7" anyways. Like he wasn't
He
a
is.
4. He's a 6'7", and if you're deep, he's probably a 7. Ask Timothy Liljegren. Like that's
But
your.
in saying that, Noodles, they probably thought he was going to be their sixth guy, right-handed shot for majority of the season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Struddy would know more than I would, but I think that they probably signed him to be 6'7", but more your 6, stay at home, penalty kill. He's a guy that I think had a good situation in Edmonton, and the grass isn't always greener somewhere else, right?
Well, let's see if they end up going back and forth on waivers at some point. I mean, that is the story of Raphael Lavoie, and the Oilers are back in action tomorrow night with Bedard in Chicago in town. That's a pretty cool game. And, of course, the Leafs are back in action tomorrow night with Sid and the Pens in town. And here's our main man, Jason Strudwick, from the Got Yer Back podcast. Struddy, how are we feeling about things out there? It was ugly a couple of nights ago for the Oilers.
Yeah, I was in the building. I was fired up, face painted. And then weird, though, it was a really weird energy in the building. I never went through it myself, but, going that far in the Stanley Cup Finals to Game 7 and then coming back to Game 1, there's got to be an emotional drop-off. And it looked like there was. Even the pregame ceremony, the fans weren't quite as fired up. Like, everyone's like, well, yeah, this is cool, but this is way cooler in June. So, I wonder if there's not going to be a bit of a time to kind of figure that out for the team, even the fans. Like, okay, these games matter, right? We got to kind of get going again and get playing, whatever their brand of hockey is for this year in this new group.
Struddy, I don't think the coach was overly fired up about preseason either. Was it kind of just... It's tough, man. Like you said, like going to the Stanley Cup Finals, short summer. I don't care if you have McDavid and Draisaitl. It's kind of... You're in a funk to get back into it because it really hasn't looked good kind of for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, if we all went to Vegas and for 3 nights, and then the 4th night, Hayes invites us to his backyard for a barbecue with chips and dip. Like, fun guy, but, it's just not the same.
It's not Vegas.
So, no, it's
I
not.
hear you, man.
I mean, do I want to hear about his bad golf shots for 4 hours? I'm not sure. It's the same I want. So, I thought it was really interesting and notable that they played Connor and Leon as much as they did. Like, I think Connor ended up playing 5 games, and I understand that Connor wants to kind of, he wants to feel the puck and stuff, but I don't know how you guys feel, but I do think that in preseason and training camp, I got better with reps in practice, right? Not so much my skill, but the details, where to be on the ice, how we back check, and just upping that pace. Because you get in the game, you're kind of into it, but you also don't want to get hurt, so you're not running guys through the boards or not playing that hard. But I think in practice, it's harder to cheat the practice than it is in the game as a veteran.
Yeah, I'd take 3 hard practices over a game any day of the week.
And so the Oilers played 8 games, right? 8, and some, I don't know, I think the least, I want to say most teams played 6. Mm-hmm. And so even if you can't, you only go in 50%, you're not getting better in practice. So I think it was a disservice to the team. They had 8 games and that they weren't able to practice and then integrate new players. Because, Skinner, the way he played in Buffalo, yeah, he can score, but it's going to have to be a little bit different the way that a team that has aspirations of another long run, the way it's going to look. Arvidsson, I think you could drop him in anytime and he looks the same. But some guys, that takes a while to figure out the way that this team wants to play it, and then for those guys to remember how hard they played to get where they did ultimately last year in Game 7.
So, Strud, what do they need to do? They're playing Chicago tomorrow, and then I think they've got Calgary in a back-to-back on Sunday, so a Battle of Alberta. What do they need to do to just for the Edmonton Oilers to look normal to us we're from the outside? What do you think they need to do tomorrow night against Chicago?
Well, Game 1 looked to me like an exhibition game, an early exhibition game. Bobbled pucks, missed assignments, kind of in the right place, but not quite doing what you need to do. Stu Skinner looked a little bit off. There's a couple goals there that he'd probably like back. I'm not going to lay this all at his feet. And then offensively, they got quite a few shots in that, but not quite sharp, not quite just finishing it off. There's a play early in the game where McDavid goes flying up the ice and goes to pass it to Hyman, but Hyman's stick was caught behind the D-man, and the puck just sailed harmlessly through the crease. And last year, Hyman scores that goal, right? And so it's just those little details that make a difference. So unfortunately for the Oilers, to follow up on what I was talking about, I think practice is huge. They had a day off yesterday, a practice today, but really how hard can you go and how long can you go when you have back-to-back games this weekend? So it's kind of a messed up situation. And I don't believe in earning the season. You can just video your way out of this. I think you have to be on the ice, feel it. So, let's see how it goes. Knobloch spoke after the game that we'll see after, the weekend. We'll be worried if there's something on after the weekend. Luckily, they have not the strongest competition, but I think both teams are going to put up a fight because they're trying to prove that they're better than maybe most media people think.
Yeah. Well, and again, Chicago losing in Utah opening night. And Bedard, it's always special when Bedard plays against Crosby, when he plays against McDavid. He's still so young, though, Struddy. He's one of the, I think, 7, 8, 10 youngest players still in the game. What is your anticipation? Like, is he a ticket seller for you yet? Is that just that's what happened when he arrived? Like, what kind of buzz comes with Bedard when he rolls through Edmonton? And what type of season would you expect him to put up?
Well, people always love the next one. It's Sidney. Well, you can go back a lot further with Gretzky and Mario, but then it's Sidney Crosby, Ovechkin. Then he passed it off to Connor and Austin Matthews, and now you have these younger guys coming like Bedard. So you always want to see how far are they off from being the next guy, can they be that next guy for a long time? So I think it sells tickets for sure, and having those two guys and Leon Draisaitl go against each other, I think it's great for the game on a Saturday night. I think that's a perfect thing. And then for Bedard, they brought some guys in around to help him out and to kind of make the team a little bit more competitive. They're still obviously a little ways away from where we want to be, but I think that with those young players, you want to continue to move in the right direction for them to see that it's not hopeless. They obviously are worried about themselves, but they're also trying to, they want to be on a winning team. So it's not going to change overnight, but making the right moves and slowly moving in the right direction, I think is important for young, quote-unquote superstars.
With Jason Strudwick. So we were talking about, the Leafs' reaction to Craig Berube being behind the bench. And I'm sure you played for a variety of different coaches throughout your career. And you were a tough guy. You knew that you could stick up for yourself, stuck up for other teams, had to play physical. Regardless of who your coach was, that wasn't going to change maybe the way you played. But I'm curious, how you would expect Leaf players that maybe go up to the edge but don't go over it, historically, or aren't naturally overly physical or rambunctious out there or whatever. Do you think Berube being behind a bench, might affect the psyche of some of these players? In other words, they feel some sort of emphasis to show that they're tougher maybe than they really are just because it's Berube behind the bench?
I do think that good coaches are able to kind of get their team to take on their personalities or the personality he wants them to take on. Now, the NHL has changed a lot since Craig Berube was jumping a young rookie defenseman named Jason Strudwick in a game. But, still, and I was completely innocent, but, things have changed a lot since then. But what I think Berube can bring to a team, what I saw against St. Louis, is being competitive and to take it a step further, hard to play against. And hard to play against you can do with and without the puck. That means that, back-checking hard and running guys out of road. Driving the net hard or defending hard in front of your net. And some of the guys they brought in, especially on the back end, they do a pretty good job at that. So let's say they now have a handful of players that are hard to play against. And Craig's going to work on more guys. And then more and more guys start playing that way. And everyone feels like, man, I better play that way. If you choose not to, you stick out. And then, either you decide you have to change or the team accommodates you and moves you out somewhere where you can play that way and then bring someone in who is hard to play against. So, you look at guys that, like Nathan McKinnon. Yeah, he's hard to play against because he's fast, but he attacks team and attacks the net, constantly going at, putting pressure on you. And that is how he makes himself hard to play against. At times you watch some teams, you're like, okay, well, why? This isn't very hard to play against. I'm not getting hit. I'm not getting pressure when I have the puck. I have time to make plays. Those aren't hard things to do. So I think that, in the time I've watched a little bit of the Leafs, I see them trying to do that more often. But again, you get more players and more to do it, and then you find out which ones don't want to do it, and that's fine. You don't have to do it. It's just you can't do that on our team. We'll find someone else that will.
Struddy, I think it's just simply trying to find a balance. majority of the players in the league, they don't need to be doing the Connor McDavid plastic stick drills in practice because that situation just doesn't come up in a game. For the most part, it's just like a grinding game, and special players at certain times of the game, they can make those special plays. It's just very simple. Bring what you, and you said it best, being difficult to play against. It doesn't mean fighting people and running people over. It's just not going out there and making it a figure skating contest. That's what any coach doesn't want, no matter who you are.
So I would practice one-timers after every practice, every morning skate. I didn't take one, not one in 13 years. I look back, I'm like, why am I doing that? Why am I taking this one? And the coach is like, you got to
hang on a second.
Why?
Your
Not
whole
one?
career, you didn't take a one-timer on net?
Never. Well, first off, I was being covered very closely.
Always
Not
a threat.
one-timer, man. That's ridiculous.
They saw you in the pregame. They knew you were dialed in.
They're like, I was Ovi before Ovi was Ovi. except they could take it away. But no, I never. I always want people to get better and improve, but understand how you're effective, right? How am I going to help the team, and then how am I going to get the coach to get me out on the ice more often? And I can only speak as a D-man. I hated, or I always found it hard when I go line up against someone. I'm like, oh man, this guy's going to drive the net every chance he gets, and he and I'd be fighting in front of the net for positioning. And I much as I enjoyed those battles, I wanted some guy that wanted to stay on the edge of on the periphery, looking for the old one-timer, right? And unless it was Ovechkin, but you know what I'm saying. So you by driving the net, by getting into pucks, at times just chip on a let's say it's a 2-on-2. It is difficult for most players to create an advantage on a 2-on-2 rush, right? If it's not man 2-on-1, 3-on-2, let's try to create something. But 2-on-2, if the D-man play it even half-assed decently, it's pretty hard. So maybe the play is the D-man pitches up on you, chip it by, and the other guy can drive the D-man seals, get the puck. Now we're in the offensive zone. Now we can kind of get into our half-court offense and that ground and pound. And ground and pound doesn't mean unskilled. It means we're in the offensive zone and we're trying to wear the other team down by the way we move, and then you can show off your skill. If you don't have the puck, you can't show off your skill in the offensive zone. So, I think everyone can play that style, understanding when to do it, when not to do it. And then it is our advantage to play in the offensive zone. And those are things that I really like. And you see the team like Florida. It took them 2 years of a lot of hockey to kind of just continually doing the right thing. And they didn't have a ton of Instagrammable moments, but they did at the very end when they got the picture of the Stanley Cup. And I would trade 100 Instagram moments for one picture of the Stanley Cup.
Strud, it just goes to show you that training for hockey, it should be like trade school. You want to do drywall, go into that section, roofing up there. If you're a depth guy, you don't need the skill drills for the most part. You can work on them and try to be better, but do the thing that you can be good at. And your point exactly, you took 0 one-timers in your career.
Yeah.
Zero,
but I did take one shootout and I scored. So maybe I was misused, right? So got to be careful. And 1 for 1 in the shootout.
Never got a chance. Never got a shot to really show who you were and what you had.
Yeah, only the goalie.
Coaches didn't want to. That's why I think our teams are trying to lose, right? They didn't want to put me out there. They put out the skilled players instead of the guy that got the job done.
That's right.
Give me a chance, coach. Give me a chance, man.
What a pair of blinders on your D partner to never feed you once for a one-timer. Like that.
They'd rather.
Tough.
Your D partner probably had 400 shots on net.
Yeah. Well, I played with Adrian O'Coin, and he had a pretty good shot, so I didn't get too upset. Then sometimes you have to, I didn't want the puck, so I made it look like I was covered.
Who was the guy that made? Who was the guy that made you -6 in New York that one night? Was it Gilbert?
Tom Gilbert. Minus. Yeah, I think it was only minus. Maybe it was -6. It was -5. I still can't believe it. -5. Like that is the worst. -5 for a D-man. I don't know what that's like for a goalie or a center. It's just you feel sick the next day. And then luckily I had a whole month to think about it because I didn't play. I thought I was going on waivers again.
Yeah, it's tough, man.
You and Renaud, what is his name?
Raphael Lavoie.
Raphael Lavoie.
Yeah, you could
What's
be
going
Raphael
on
Lavoie.
Hey, does he get money? Don't you get like $2,500 every time you're put on waivers? So did I dream that? Or maybe
I think there is some sort of waiver, I think waiver claim, something. You get something, I think, but I don't know if he's getting that
Dude,
money.
he's a millionaire now. The guy's been on waivers 15,000 times. He's probably loving it then.
What is going on with that, Struddy?
I don't know. Well, I have no idea. But so for people who haven't seen Raphael Lavoie, he's a big guy that can shoot, and he's got a good one-timer. He can shoot and score. The problem is for the Oilers, he's not a top six player, but I'm not sure he's a bottom six player either, because he so far hasn't shown that he can be that hard playing, grinding guy and finishing checks. So I don't really know where he fits in. And so Vegas, these two teams are fighting over him. I'm like, where is he playing? Like, what is his role on an NHL team? And there's a lot of good players outside the NHL, and I just never know. Like, the reason is we don't know what their job is. They're like, he's not taking whoever, Leon Draisaitl off the power play. But is he able to be kind of a heavy player in the bottom six? And that's, I think, where a lot of players kind of get tripped up, is because they maybe aren't willing or don't understand they have to take a different role on to get into the NHL. Once you're in, unless you're a high pick, you can work your way up. So yeah, I feel bad for him. I just don't know where he fits in. Like, is he a checking line? I don't think so. Is he a kind of ground and pound the fourth line? I don't think so. Is he good enough to play the top six? I don't think so. But he's a good player. So sometimes hockey's unfair.
Yep. He's a waiver claim is what he is right now until he actually starts playing somewhere. Pretty wild scene there, but we'll see what comes of it this weekend. Oilers, Blackhawks tomorrow night. Have yourself a great Thanksgiving, Struddy. We'll do it again soon. Thank you, buddy.
See you, boys. Take care.
Jason Strudwick from the Got Your Back podcast. Never a one-timer. Not one in his career.
That's crazy. Like, when you think about it, because Hayes, you would know this. Like, how many times do D-man work on that one to
It's
D
the
to D
go-to
one-timer?
play.
Yeah,
After every
I've
practice.
seen it for 100 years. Rimming around the boards, the guy in the wall gets the puck, goes back to the other D, and that guy gets to the middle and just lay one back for a one-timer.
Every time. Walk the line, feed your partner, one-timer. You would do it 15,000 times in a season. And he never activated that practice once during live action. That's a stat that might never be broken. Right?
Somebody's going to dig up some viz. Someone's going to do some investigation and find a one-timer from Struddy.
Well, that's tape I want to see, because we'll play it a lot. If you can find a one-timer from Jason Strudwick,
we'll come up with a prize pack. We'll come up with a prize pack.
Yes.
I think he used a broom for a stick, though, too. Like, I believe, for some reason, I think I have one of his sticks at my house, and his blade is like, twice the size of Leon Draisaitl's. It's like, remember Timo Solani used this giant blade, and it looked like a goalie blade? For some reason, I feel like Struddy used this, like, long, wide blade.
100%.
Like a
Way
squeegee.
too heavy.
It was a squeegee.
Paul Bunyan. Yeah. Just like, he may as well have not had a stick.
Exactly.
Just go out there because it's mandatory to have one. Give me something.
Yeah.
What a beauty. All right, Mike Johnson coming up. Dear Hazy B later this afternoon. Luke Wilson as well, and more on what's going on with a big Game 5 in the NLDS or I guess the ALDS and the NLDS. We got a couple of ball games the next 2 days. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Al's brother has been somewhere in the city with Leaf tickets, and it's time for you to tell us where Al's brother was hiding this week. Call us right now at 416-870-1050, 416-870-1050. The first caller through with the correct location wins a pair of tickets to see the Leafs home opener tomorrow night. All right, tomorrow night, 416-870-1050. I've had a lot of people tell me the answer.
Do you know what? Where was it?
I think it's safe to say it by now, right? Whoever people are calling. Yeah, you go ahead, Noodles. You know where it is.
Are we sure? Is it safe to say it on air? I don't want to get a scissor kick from anybody.
The lines are jammed. People are calling. Okay. People have the answer.
It's Ted Reeve, correct?
Ted Reeve Arena. That is correct. Ted Reeve Arena. What a legendary spot. I love that building. It's so great. And, I had a bunch of people say Ted Reeve. Ted Reeve. I knew it was Ted Reeve on Tuesday.
The one that gave it up was the movie, because everybody knows it was filmed there. The Youngblood movie.
That's right.
But that's the argument. Apparently, it was filmed in 2 arenas, not just one.
Somewhere near Hamilton as well?
Well, I was arguing, going, all you had to do is Google Youngblood Arena, and Ted Reeve comes on.
Figure that out, I guess.
They're like, no, it's another. There's another one too. I'm like, okay, well, that's where I think. Al's Brother is a beauty, and it was a good. Listen, it's a
good start.
Prime
Big tickets. Yeah,
prime tickets are going to see Sidney Crosby against the Leafs. Like, that's unbelievable.
That's
on
right.
Opening night too.
Opening night, Thanksgiving weekend. What a beauty! All right, we'll play Al's Brother's clip a little bit later on, but that's the big reveal. Is he was at Ted Reeve. It's a great rink. Wexford Raiders home rink back in the day. I don't know if Wexford is still a team anymore. Not sure if they are or not. But another chance to find Al's Brother and win Leaf tickets starts next week on OverDrive. Full details at tsn1050.ca. So Al's Brother will be in a different location around the city next week. And thanks for playing along. Ted Reeve, Al's Brother. We'll see where he's at next week. All right, hour 2 coming up. Mike Johnson will join us. Back into the Leaf game last night, the Leaf game tomorrow night. Lots of action throughout the NHL. Baseball, football, CFL action, Argos in action. Tonight it's going to be an awesome weekend. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.